We've seen the kind of support that has poured in for Israel against this terror attack by Hamas over the weekend and the airstrikes and bombardment that continues even today. India's stand has been very, very clear as well. And now what we're learning from our sources within the government is that it is an unconditional support to Israel against terror attack. It should not be seen in any other sense. That's really what we're learning from our sources within the government. Let's take you across to what exactly we've gathered from our sources within the government here. This is what a top government source has revealed to us here on CNN News 18, that India has condemned this terror attack. India condemns terror in all its forms and all its manifestations. That is very, very clear. The Prime Minister's statement as far as calling out this terror is very clear just about this particular attack. It is not against any religion, is also what we're now learning. We're not talking about any bilateral issue at the moment. We're not talking about Palestine or Israel. We're talking about a terror group attacking innocent civilians. That's the stand that the Indian government has taken. The Prime Minister's statement is not against any religion, like I said, is also what the top government source told us. Many Muslim bodies, in fact, have condemned this kind of act, this kind of terror that has been unleashed against innocent civilians. Many in Muslim community in India too have backed the government, like we told you earlier in the day as well. Two or more bodies, as far as Muslim bodies in the country, have come out and said that they stand with the message that the Prime Minister has sent as far as fighting terror goes. We will educate people on the Israel-Palestine issue is also something that the top government source has now come out and told us. Abhishek, my colleague, continues to be with us here on this broadcast. Now, Abhishek, the government is very clear in its condemnation as far as terror goes. Terror in all its manifestations must be condemned, and that's really what this issue is about. It's not about the two states. It's not about recognizing one over the other.
Well, and India has been one of the victims of terror emanating from across the border, terror emanating from other parts of the world, and we have seen in the history 80s, 90s, and the earliest or the last major terror attack that we could remember it was in Bombay, it went up as 26/11, and then also Pathankot. So many, the entire in the entirety, India has always been, positioning itself that there is some or any means of violence to achieve a political goal is condemnable, and it should be condemned by all across the world without any, kind of having morality or any preconceived policy. So the terrorism in all its form and manifestation is bad, and that should be condemned. That has been just a stand. So when the attack happened on Israeli, settlements where the people were kind of massacred, brutality and the ruthlessness of the militants that we have seen in the videos is appalling. And without having any time to wait, India issued a statement saying that India stands with Israel. India condemns all forms of terrorism. We know that India is not against the existence of Palestine, or India does care about the cause of Palestinian people. Also, Prime Minister, while he had visited Israel, he had visited Palestine also. So that's the kind of support India has extended to Palestine as well. But the terrorism, that is the part, and if that becomes part of the state policy of even for the Palestinian side, then it is something that India would not support, it would condemn. And that is the clear message that government of India has given to the world, that terrorism, no matter what, no matter where it's coming from, it is condemnable, and India will never take side on the issue, and it will always be supporting the victim. And currently the victim is, of course, the people of Israel who have suffered, the most in the sense that thousands of Israeli civilians have been killed, about 200 or so Israeli defense personnel have been killed, and that is unprecedented. That has not happened in the recent decades. I mean, for decades, nobody can remember if Israel had ever experienced such an onslaught or any experience of terrorism.
It's the worst since the Yom Kippur war that Israel has witnessed. Do stay on with me. We have former diplomat Tripathi also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, when we talk about the Israel-Palestine issue, who's the oppressor, who's the victim, that narrative changes depending on who you're speaking to. But as far as what we've witnessed on this weekend over the last 6 days, this is about a terror group, Hamas, attacking innocent civilians, attacking unarmed civilians. And that is what it should be. We shouldn't be afraid to call a spade, isn't it?
Sure, and that's what we have done. Though we have very good relationship with Palestine as well as with Israel, and we have already highlighted that our relation with one is not dependent on our relation with the other. They are quite dehyphenated. But this time, this was not Palestine. This was Hamas, which is which itself is a terrorist group. So we didn't shy away from calling that this is we're criticizing this terror attack on Israeli civil society, and we clearly Prime Minister clearly stated that we are with Israel as regards this terror attack on Israeli people is concerned. So our policy has been quite clear. We distinguish between Hamas and Palestine. We know that Hamas is not Palestine. Hamas is a breakaway group which has control over Gaza Strip. So that's how we have reacted on it, and I think both sides have very well understood this.
Absolutely, that distinction has to be made, and it has been made as far as India is concerned. We do hope that many other countries who are still supporting what has happened over the last few days see the light of day. But Mr. Tripathi, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, the stand that India has taken, there was criticism over how India was choosing one against the other with the unequivocal support that we had provided to Israel. But this is not about choosing Israel over Palestine or vice versa. This is about condemning terror in all its forms, and that's what it should be about.
You are absolutely right, and I think this is the viewpoint with which the Prime Minister twice in about 4 days he tweeted that we stand with Israel, with the people of Israel. We stand against terrorism. You know, India itself has been a victim of terrorism for not only many years, many decades, right from late 80s, early 90s. And we have lost so many people to the scourge of terrorism, whether it is 26/11, whether it's Pathankot, it is Uri, it is Pulwama, all of these innumerable number of the attack on our parliament. So it is natural, and we have been speaking against terror, against global terror, on all platforms in the world, wherever we have been, whether it is the United Nations, in the UN Security Council, in any of the multilateral, global, international, regional platforms, we have been speaking out against terror. So it was but natural that when there is an obvious and such a barbaric, inhumane treatment of people, it is of children, of women, how it has been done. It was but natural that the Prime Minister came out very clearly, unambiguously, openly in favor of Israel, and because it is the victim of terror. So it is not conflating one with the other. Our position on the Israel-Palestine issue, because I think we also need to recognize that Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinian cause, and what it has done, it was not to advance the Palestinian cause. The only objective that Hamas has is to exterminate Jews and to destroy Israel so that it stops existing from the face of
what their
the
charter
earth.
also says. It's clearly xenophobic material that Hamas is propagating. There are absolutely no two ways of looking at that. But Mr. Sajjanhar, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. We do have to shift focus now to some